Imagine hiding in a dark cave while a huge army is marching toward you. Not 100 soldiers. Not 1,000. Tens of thousands. And you only have about 300 people with you. Sounds impossible to win, right? But what if I told you those 300 people didn't just survive, they helped create the country of Spain? And by the end of this story, you'll understand how a small group hiding in a cave changed history forever. Let's go back almost 1,300 years. A long time ago, in the year 711, a powerful empire called the Umayyad Caliphate invaded Spain. They came from North Africa with strong soldiers and fast horses. And they were really good at fighting. In just a few years, they took over almost the entire country. Cities gave up. Leaders surrendered. Most people accepted the new rulers because they didn't think they could win. But not everyone agreed. Far in the north of Spain, there were huge mountains called the Cantabrian Mountains. These weren't smooth hills. They were steep, rocky, and hard to climb. It rained a lot. The paths were narrow. It was the kind of place where only locals really knew how to travel safely. And hiding in those mountains was a man named Pelagius. We don't know everything about Pelagius, but we know one thing for sure. He refused to give up. While other leaders accepted the new rulers, Pelagius said no. He gathered a small group of people, farmers, hunters, and a few soldiers, and they escaped into the mountains. They didn't have shiny armor. They didn't have a huge army. They had about 300 people. That's smaller than most schools. Pelagius knew something very important. He knew they couldn't win in an open field. If they fought the big army on flat land, they would lose instantly. So instead of fighting where the enemy was strong, he chose to fight where the enemy was weak. He chose the mountains. And most importantly, he chose a cave called Covadonga. Now think about this. If you're trying to attack someone hiding inside a cave high up on a mountain, what do you have to do? You have to climb up. In heavy armor. On narrow paths. While someone above you can see everything you're doing. It's like trying to run up the stairs while someone at the top is throwing things down at you. That's exactly what happened. The Umayyad army, which may have been around 10,000 soldiers or more, marched into the mountains to crush this tiny rebellion. They probably thought, this will be easy. After all, they had taken over almost all of Spain already. What could 300 people do? But here's the trick. When you're in a narrow mountain path, you can't use your big numbers. Only a few soldiers can fight at a time. The rest are stuck behind them. Meanwhile, Pelagius and his group were above them. They could throw rocks. They could shoot arrows. They could push enemies back down the slope. And the soldiers climbing up were getting tired, confused, and scared. Because suddenly, their big army didn't feel so big anymore. Imagine being far from home, climbing a slippery mountain, and your friends in front of you are falling. You can't see clearly. You can't move easily. You start thinking, is this worth it? And that's exactly what happened. The big army struggled. The attack failed. And instead of staying and losing more soldiers, the Umayyad commander decided to leave. Let that sink in. The most powerful army in the area walked away from 300 people hiding in a cave. Now, this wasn't the end of the war. Spain didn't suddenly become free again overnight. But something very important happened. For the first time since the invasion, someone had fought back and won. That victory gave people hope. Pelagius didn't just survive. He started a small kingdom in the north called Asturias. That tiny kingdom became stronger over time. More people joined. More land was taken back. And over hundreds of years, yes, hundreds, Christian kingdoms slowly pushed south. This long process is called the Reconquista. And many people believe it all started with that small battle in the cave of Covadonga. Now, you might hear stories that say it was 300 versus 100,000. Those numbers are probably exaggerated to make the story more dramatic. Back then, writers loved making battles sound bigger than they were. But even if the big army was only 10,000 soldiers, that's still huge compared to 300. And that's what makes this story so powerful. It teaches us something important. First lesson, don't fight where you're weakest. Pelagius didn't fight on flat land. He fought in the mountains where he had the advantage. Second lesson, small victories matter. He didn't need to defeat the whole empire. He just needed to prove that winning was possible. Third lesson, never underestimate determination. The big empire had more soldiers, more weapons, and more power. But Pelagius had something they didn't have. He had nowhere else to go. Sometimes, when people refuse to give up, they become stronger than anyone expects. Remember how we started with 300 people trapped in a cave? That cave didn't look important. It was just rock and stone in the mountains. But inside that cave was something powerful. Hope. And hope can grow into something much bigger. From that tiny group in the mountains, a kingdom was born. And from that kingdom, the country of Spain eventually rose. So the big idea is simple: even small groups can change the world if they're smart, brave, and refuse to quit. Sometimes history doesn't start with a giant army, it starts with a few people in a cave who say, "We're not done." If you like this story and want to hear more amazing true tales from history, make sure you stick around for the next one. And if this surprised you, hit that like button so we know you want more epic stories like this.